And I say good morning to you and welcome to Governance Policies and You. And we're talking with Shena Stubbs-Gibson today, again, with all the information. Well, okay, we're going to go as much as we can. Right, Sheena? Good morning. How you do? Hello?
Good morning.
Morning, I
Ma-
hear you know.
okay.
How are
All
you?
right. I was just saying good morning to you and to your listeners.
Yes,
It's always such a pleasure to be able to
indeed.
share with you
And we
and
appreciate
your
you sharing.
wonderful listeners. Yes.
Yes, we appreciate you sharing.
Okay.
Yes.
So where were we last time? I said we were still on the topic of pension
Okay, yes, and
and
boy, people need the
not the
information.
NIS pension, but
Mm-hmm.
the government pension, and I was also touching on the last occasion on pensionable age,
Mm-hmm.
sharing with sharing with their listeners the new pensionable age since 20 since the 2018 legislation, and also sharing that early retirement is no longer at 55 but now at 60, based on the changes to the legislation since 2018.
Mm-hmm.
For some workers in government, there's a transitional period. If 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 you were over a certain age, like over 54 years old when the changes to the legislation came in, then you weren't obliged to stay on until you get to 65.
Mm-hmm.
You were offered the opportunity to be in a transitional, to go at the old age, the old retirement age of
Of
60,
55. Okay.
of 60, which is retirement age. Early retirement would have been 55.
55 then.
So for
Okay.
certain persons who were in the older age demographic,
Mm-hmm.
they, even though the legislation came into place, if they wanted to, they could have applied
Right.
to still go off at that particular age.
Right.
It's important for us to share this because other benefits are linked to the age of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And from time to time, I get messages from some of your listeners who are inquiring about having worked at a place for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
30 years.
And
Why?
then no
And,
get nothing.
and why can't they get their money? But you have to remember that a lot of the benefits turn on whether or not you ever arrived at the age of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Even even where it is like NIS benefits, and you, even though you have worked there for 20 years and 30 years, you know, it's easy to work at an organization for 30 years and not yet be 65 or 60.
Yes.
Very
Right.
easy.
Right. Right.
So it's persons kind of just feel like, boy, I gave 20, 30 years to this
All
place,
of this
and
time.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
can't I get my monies? No.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the legislation does not provide for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I say generally because there'll always be exceptions,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially in the event of like serious injuries which prevent you from working,
Mm-hmm.
or in the event of death of a spouse or stuff. There are benefits that can be accessed.
Right.
And we always need to remember the distinction between the NIS pension
Mm-hmm.
and the pension which is paid to everybody, whether it's government workers
Mm-hmm.
or private sector workers, that little NIS pension, and the other pension that's paid to the Accountant General Department, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is really just for government workers, and that's the more substantial one of the two. Now, you may have persons on your program, listening to the program, who I talk a lot about what obtains. When I speak about this accountant general pension, yes, it is largely for government workers.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have, and from time to time, we do get queries about, I worked with this gas station, or I worked with this company. And the queries are persons who are not in the government sector. I may have said this before, and this
Yes.
is actually not even what I was prepared to talk
But
about for this
somebody needs to
morning.
hear it.
But let me just show it in
Yes.
anyways,
Yes.
right? Yes. Persons in the private sector
Mm-hmm.
have to look to the policy and the contract that they signed with their employer
Pay
when they were coming on.
attention. Yes.
If it's a small organization and you are getting employed to a small organization, say you're getting employed to one of these shops downtown or to a gas station,
Mm-hmm.
you're in your 40s or in your 30s, don't just sign the contract. Don't just sign the contract and think about salary, but think about pension,
Yes.
right? Because you certainly want to have your pension. You want to start seriously thinking about your pension arrangements when you get like into your 30s. Some persons would say from 20s, but certainly if you haven't started in your 20s, you
Start.
certainly want to be
Start.
thinking of any job you're getting in your 30s, you should be having a conversation
Mm-hmm.
about pension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too many persons sign on to contracts and they're not asking those questions. And
Yes.
so what you'll find, Nadine, oftentimes they're not even paying NIS. So,
Wow.
and domestic workers, this is something for domestic workers as well to listen out to. You're not going to find that many households will have a pension arrangement because they just can't afford it. And so a domestic employee would not usually get a pension plan from their employer after they reach the age of retirement or after they stop working with their employer. It's hardly likely because an individual employer or a family won't have the resources to put in place a pension plan. And so I've said on this program before, that's why domestic workers, persons who work in these, as I said, the small, I'm specifying small
Small.
because I know that's
Yes.
where it's more vulnerable, where
Right.
persons are more vulnerable. I'm going to talk about medium and large shortly, but small, you especially want to make certain that at the least you're signed up for NIS pension. So make
Mm-hmm.
certain that little change is coming out of your salary every month, and if your employer is not taking it out, call NIS and inform on them.
Yes.
Can I put that in a nicer way? Call NIS and express your concerns because this is a legal requirement. And
Yes.
remember, this benefits you later on in life because every mickle, Nadine,
Make
make
a
a
muckle,
muckle,
and
right?
when you reach in that age and you need it and you turn around and
Mr. Nadine, in that
what bread
stage,
used to cost when you started working is not the same thing bread going cost
and
when you
remember,
retire.
Nadine, I watched this with my parents, and my parents, they were government workers, and so
Mm-hmm.
they still get, you know, um, health insurance. But I've watched as you get older, and it is real because I myself am getting into that demographic,
Yes.
right? So the medication, Nadine, you remember saying, no, you're gonna have little hypertension now, and you're gonna have little diabetes,
Yes.
and the cost of the medication. I've seen people go blind
My
because they
God.
have glaucoma and they're up in age and they can't afford it. So when you're in
Mm-hmm.
your 30s, don't just live life. Sometimes the employer would want to take the money and it's not much, and they don't want it. They don't want it to be taken because they want to. When we're young, we live like there's no tomorrow. But let me tell you, when you hit the 50s
When
and then you
reality
start to
sets
get the little
in,
diabetes and stuff, let me tell you, one of little bottle of these eye drops or any little medication I see my parents have
if
to
you tell
buy,
you,
any little thing, it's at least $5,000 per
yes,
per so
month,
with yes, and Nadine, these are things that you have to do every month.
yes,
So
yes,
if I could leave a kernel with your listeners, no
yes,
matter the size of the enterprise that you work in, whether it's small, medium, or large enterprise,
yes,
be concerned about your future.
yes.
Always be looking for something that offers a pension plan. And as an alternative, if it doesn't offer a pension plan and maybe you're not in the marketing category where you can demand that because maybe you do not come to the market in a position to demand that. At
Mm-hmm.
the least, everybody can demand NIS contributions, right?
Right.
So the for the larger workplace now, let us say for your young persons who are listening and you're going on to the bank to work, you're going on to an insurance company to work, and these are well established. You're going into a media house to work.
Yeah.
You should find out what their pension arrangement is.
Yes.
So you want to be asking questions during the interview and afterwards. Do you have a
Sometimes they don't
pension?
even know what to ask, though.
That is why
That
I'm
is the
that's why
thing.
I'm
So
now
now,
moving
those
up,
of you
right.
who are listening, you are looking for a job. Ask about those things. What are the plans for pension? What do you have in place for pension?
And I can't underscore it enough, Nadine, because as I said, when you're in your twenties, pension seems retirement
So
seems a
far
long way
away.
off, right?
It's like,
But let me tell you, the years go by so quickly,
if you tell
right? The
you,
years go by so quickly. Before you know it, you were 20s, then 30s, then 40s, and then the years go by so quickly. And
mm-hmm,
remember, too, Nadine, as we age, another component that you find will hit you, young people, younger persons that are listening.
mm-hmm,
By the time you get like into your 40s and 50s, guess what? Your parents start to get sick.
mm-hmm.
And what does that mean for you?
You have
It
to
a
double up.
lot of times it means that you are having to dip into your financial
Yes, you have to
resources that
double
you
up.
are saving to assist. And
Yeah,
when our parents are ill, we feel a moral
obligation.
obligation to
Yeah,
assist them.
because they were there
Nadine,
when we were crying in the
yes,
night.
Nadine, I tell you, the littlest surgery, the littlest surgery. These because let's talk it real. The
Yeah,
littlest surgery is $1.5 million
my
up,
God. And the money
right?
don't grow on the
I
tree.
remember. So when you are thinking to yourself, "Oh, this is enough to tide me,"
Mm-hmm.
remember that by the time you hit your 40s, because the parents tend to be like, 20 or 30 years old, 20 or 30 years older than us. So by the time you hit your 40s, and in some unfortunate cases even younger, you have not just your children
Mm-hmm.
thinking that's drawing on your savings, but also your parents.
Right.
So think you want to have that pension plan for you, so that at least when you get to 65 or when you get to 60, so you want to ask about that when you go onto your next job. Ask if they have a pension plan in place, because private sector will have a different arrangement. So it's not ADD, it's
Wow.
not the Accountant General Department that you will get your pension to. Do not think that there's any government arrangement in place for persons who are not working in
You have to
government.
ask for yourself two things, and you know the time go.
Yeah. I
Someone
mean, I
saying
reached
that,
on what they want
no,
to talk
Miss
to you
sorry
about
for you
it, but
today, but you're not talk
I feel
today.
the need to just stop and talk about this,
but hold on.
situation.
Two things came in. One person says that a lot of media houses don't have a pension plan, which is sad. Morning, Shannondale. And then someone else said that they went and reported their workplace at the NIS office from March about the boss not paying NIS, and no one has come to the office. But would this person necessarily see somebody come, or would it
No,
be
no,
something
no, they
that,
wouldn't necessarily see, and
right,
they should follow up because it's going to be discreet. It's going to be discreet. So is it that the person
discreet?
has called back? Yes, it has to be discreet,
Right, right.
because they
So
also don't want to make it look like you are the one that called. So when they're doing their investigation, it has to be discreet. So
right,
give it a little time. Between March and now is not really a long period with all the constraints of
right,
COVID. For them to do an investigation and to send a letter. So give it a little time.
right,
I don't think between March and now, given all the constraints that exist right now,
right,
is that long a time. So I think you should give it a little bit more time, and you can always call and say what's happening with it,
right.
right?
So
And remember,
Yolanda,
if they are writing a letter to you, wouldn't necessarily know,
right,
because if a letter has been sent or a summons or stuff, they're not addressing it to you. It's going straight to the employer who is not going to be telling staff about that.
right.
So how does the listener know that nothing has been
Been
done?
done exactly.
Really?
You don't necessarily know, or you won't know what that something has been done. So what you can do is make another call, maybe a month from now or so, just to say,
But Nadine,
you're
before
checking.
you
I
throw me off,
remember
I
the
want
word discreet, discreet. Load up. I'm
yeah,
there. I'm now.
Nadine, Nadine, before you throw me
Da
off, I
da
wanted to just
dee.
quickly finish the point about when on your interviews, ask about the pension scheme plan there and this issue of what's vesting. Like, how soon will it take for you to go on the pension scheme? Because that's another thing. A company may have a good pension plan, but
Mhm.
it takes 10 years for it to be vested. In other
Ah,
words, It takes you have to be on in the plan, contributing to the plan for 10 years before you will become entitled to a pension.
Mm,
Some companies have it lower, so you want to shop around, right? You want to shop around because you probably would want to join a company that, especially if you're up in age, you want to reach a particular age. You want to join a company where the vesting is at a earlier point, so maybe 5 years instead of
right,
10 years.
right.
And as I always say, if you can store a little bit more, a lot of companies also, and check out the union too, what the union arrangements are. But I know you're gonna throw me off, but
Well, somebody
with
else just right now that they're working with a well-known company and they're not paying anything. My dear, call the NIS and just say, I'm and discreetly call.
and right, and
People are gonna
apart
come
from
down here to
NIS,
we.
apart from NIS, which is small, is that person saying that they're not paying a pension? The employer is not contributing a pension, because how it usually works is that the employer pays half and
Part
you pay
and you
half.
pay half,
So is
right?
this person saying they're working with a well-known company and no pension, no NIS being deducted, neither any
Pension
pension plan in
plan.
place?
So
Well,
what do
maybe
they
they should
do?
look
Read
at
the
not
pension.
working with that employer then, if they don't have a pension plan.
Hmm.
Or is the person just not seized of the information and needs to have a conversation with the HR manager?
Okay, so let me send the number and information. So if you need the number and information, remember it's only text or WhatsApp. You can just text or WhatsApp and ask your question. Sheena Stubbs Gibson, thank you so much for sharing with us. Love your passion. She has a passion for sharing information. I love
Thank you.
information. I love sharing and informing
Thank
persons.
you.
So it's not the NIS number you're going to get, miss. So,
No,
them asking for the
please make
NIS
that
number.
clear.
It's
I
not
don't
the
work with
NIS
the
number.
NIS.
Right. Sheena Stubbs Gibson is a lawyer. She will
Yeah.
just guide you. All right. So thank you so much. We're out of time. Have a wonderful
Take
rest of the
care.
day.
Have a
Shannon
good
Dale,
day.
so
Bye.
nice seeing you on the place. Bless you all.
All right. Bye.